With quarterback competitions across the nation, we enlisted the help of our team site reporters to break down the biggest battles at Ohio State, Michigan, Colorado. Dave Biddle, kick us off.
Ohio State's quarterback battle is very interesting as the Buckeyes look to replace Will Howard from their national championship team. Right now, third-year sophomore Lincoln Keenholz has been running with the first-team offense during the Buckeyes' spring practices. Keenholz was a high four-star recruit. I think some people forget that. He was ranked as the number 11 quarterback in the country in the 2023 class, now entering his third year, 3 years of eligibility left, and he was the USA Today National Athlete of the Year his senior year in high school. Played many sports, was great at all of them. Now he's been focusing on football, just football, for 3 years. So he's been running with the ones, and he looks good. That being said, I will be shocked if Julian Sayin is not the starting quarterback for Ohio State this year. He's a redshirt freshman. He played in 4 games last year, which enabled him to save the year of eligibility. A young man that was handpicked by Nick Saban right before Saban retired, or Ohio State would not have him if not for that. It wouldn't have Caleb Downs. And Julian Sayin was the number 1 quarterback in the country in his class. And, you talk to some of the veteran players on Ohio State's team, guys that are even no longer are on the team, guys that are going to be in the NFL draft. They were gushing about Julian Sayin at the combine. And the little bit we've seen of practice, Julian Sayin looks really good. Running with the twos for now, but I will be shocked if Julian Sayin is not trotting out there as a starting quarterback when Ohio State opens the 2025 season with who? Texas. How cool is that? We have Ohio State, Texas at the Horseshoe in week 1. Those two, they played not that long ago in the college football semifinals. And then Ohio State also has true freshman Tavian St. Clair, who they love, 5-star. Look for him to redshirt this year. It comes from a small school here in Ohio, but very talented. The coaches really like him. So expect Julian Sayin to be Ohio State's starting quarterback this year.
The Michigan quarterback battle is living up to the hype. I think that's the best way to put it. When Bryce Underwood came in, I think the 5-star expectations leads to the natural hype that's coming from everywhere. But when he actually takes the practice field, I think you expect for it to die down, at least within the walls, not from outside, where all the fans expect for the glitz and the glamour and all the stars and all the hype to continue. But in the walls, you expect the freshman mistakes. You expect the players and the coaches to kind of see the blemishes and the warts and the growth to kind of slow down some of the hype. But it's actually been quite the contrary, guys. And I think that's what's been kind of surprising to me, is that when you talk to people on the inside, it's that the coaches, the players, the insiders, the people who I trust, who see talented players all the time, who have seen Bryce a lot, right? That they are saying, man, it's different. Like, it's one thing to see him with his cannon for an arm and, his big time athleticism, to see that show up in high school games and to see it show up in warm-ups. But does it translate to real reps? Does it translate to real scrimmages? And it has. He's a guy who learns from mistakes promptly. He's a guy whose leadership is translating. He's a guy whose preparation is really beyond its years. So how rapidly he has been able to make the transition, at least in practice, I think has been surprising, for lack of a better term, to the folks within the walls. That doesn't mean that the race is over. That doesn't mean that Jaden Davis is not competing at a high level. That doesn't mean that Mikey King won't be the guy. That just means that the hype is not just hype. That means that the hype about Bryce Underwood is real.
The Colorado Buffaloes are now 6 spring practices into the post-Shedeur Sanders era, and as expected, it's been Liberty transfer Caden Salter and Prize 2025 signee Julian Lewis that have taken the bulk of the reps at quarterback this spring against the 1s and 2s. You've got Caden Salter that started 24 games at Liberty, won 20 of those games, and his efficiency in the RPO game has really stood out. Could take a lot of pressure off Colorado's offensive line, one of the more criticized units in the country the past couple of years with his dual threat capabilities. But you've also got Julian Lewis and this intriguing potential for the future. He really should be a junior in high school right now, reclassified from the 26th class. So he's mature beyond his years. There's the physical aspect of it. Is he ready to compete at this level? Signs have said yes, based on what he's done this spring. So this is a battle I think goes a couple weeks into the preseason. I'd be really surprised if they name a starter coming out of spring ball. So do you go with youth and intrigue, or do you go with experience? And it's going to be a really tough decision the Buffalo's coaches have to make here in the coming months.
A lot of great intel there from our guys. Let's react to it, starting with that Ohio State quarterback battle. You heard Dave Biddle say it. Lincoln Kienholz is the one that's getting the first team reps, but he would be shocked if Julian Sayin was not the starter in 2025. Week 1, he said ready to go against Texas in week 1. What would have to happen for that not to happen?
I think Julian just doesn't have to show up and play and just participate. But, Emily, at the end of the day, I think both quarterbacks are going to play. I don't see where you have one quarterback throughout the season starting at Ohio State. And at least we get to about midway during the season and we figure this out. Because I think the way that they have to play somewhat of a ball-controlled RPO game. One guy's an RPO game, Lincoln, but Julian has to get on the football field. Or else if he doesn't, Coop, you know what's going to happen in December.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of variables here, and we're talking about a couple weeks into spring ball for Ohio State. Lincoln Kienholz is a little bit more comparable to Will Howard. Now, I'm not saying they're the exact same, but you think about Will Howard, they leaned on his legs a lot in the national championship and in that game against Penn State. So you think about Kienholz, his background. This guy hit over 420 on baseball. He was a 19-7 guy, points per games, rebound on the basketball court, and then also rushed for 1,400 yards as a senior there in South Dakota. So you think about that one dynamic and how much that alleviates an offensive line that's going through a lot of changes. They're losing a lot of guys. They bring in a couple transfers, probably 3 new starters on the offensive line. So to Smoke's point, I think there's going to be a wrinkle here where we'll see Lincoln Kienholz just because of what he offers on the ground.
As for Michigan, Bryce Underwood, sounds like from our friend Sam Webb that the hype is real. It was maybe a surprise to some people within that building just how quickly he's caught on. That's not a surprise to you, Coop.
No battle at all. You know, with all due respect to Mikey Keene, you don't pay this guy $12, $13 million, whatever it is, to sit on the bench, and he's incredibly physically gifted. Jaden Davis wasn't going to be any competition to him. Davis Warren wasn't going to be any competition, nor Mikey Keene. This is the guy. This is the guy that you're riding with. I think the biggest question I have, who are you throwing the football to? You know, because their top 2 leading receivers are gone. Colston Loveland's gone. Tyler Morris is gone. And out of their returning receivers, none of them had more than 140 yards receiving last year. So, yes, it's great that you have your cornerstone quarterback for the next 3 years. But in terms of the supporting cast, you're going to ask a lot out of Bryce Underwood, Justice Haynes, and that offensive line.
Yeah, Coop. I just don't want them asking this young man to be Superman too early. Because he has the ability to be Superman. But when you ask young players to do something that they aren't really comfortable with out the gate, then you start developing bad habits of saying, you know what, I have to win this game all by myself because the supporting cast around me is just not good enough. So long as they bring this young man along slowly, allow him to be Bryce Underwood, and don't ask him to be Super Bryce Underwood with a Superman cape on, I think he'll be just fine.
Opposite situation at Colorado. It sounds like they're going to go with the experience. Caden Salter is leading that job right now. But in the decision between Salter and Juju Lewis, we hear from Adam Munster-Tiger that it's between youth and intrigue versus experience. What would you pick in this instance?
I'm going to go with the vet, the guy that's done it before, and not rely on a younger player without the same thing that we just talked about with Michigan. Offensive line last year was iffy at best. The receivers, all of those guys are going to get drafted this year, from Webster to Shepard to Travis Hunter. So there aren't a lot of weapons around Juju to ask him to be a good quarterback in college. And again, I say have a package for him, but have the older guy to come in, and whatever happens this year, that's on his shoulders, not the young guy's shoulders.
Bryce Underwood and Julian Lewis are very different quarterbacks just from a physical stature standpoint. And you think about Julian Lewis as a guy that reclassed, as Adam pointed out in his video. You know, this is a guy that's going into a really good situation where the expectations in Boulder, sure, they're elevated, but in terms of a team winning a Big 12 championship, that's what they expect. But Julian Lewis has the luxury of being able to sit and learn in a pro-style system under Pat Shurmur and then has the benefit to learn under a guy like Caden Salter as well, and a guy that can get it done on the ground, through the air as well. And you mentioned it, this is still an offensive line that's still kind of putting their best football together as well. So I like the veteran option as well. And if you're Julian Lewis, man, just look around. Look at Dante Moore. Look at Jackson Arnold. You don't have to play early. Just sit, learn, develop, right? Like that D word is really, really important. So for Julian Lewis, who's supposed to still be in high school, just take your time.
As long as they're still serving the Juju Lewis Precision Pass Burger, I'm happy. We got a comment here in the YouTube chat real quick. I want to toss this to you, Coop. Tyler Chambers wants to know, how much of a fall off is Colorado going to have this year with Hunter and Shadurgan?
It's going to be big just from the two type of players that we're talking about. I mean, we're talking about a Heisman Trophy winner, maybe one of the most dynamic athletes we've seen in college football for quite some time. I don't know, smoked 20 years just in terms of the two-way ability. Shador is more than likely going to be a top 5 pick. Those two guys together, they're instant grits. They completely change the dynamic of your program perceptionally, but from a bottom line standpoint as well. Colorado might be better other places. Continuity going into year 3, especially year 2 under Robert Livingston, the defensive coordinator that they're really high on. They have recruited well, both in the transfer portal and in high school. That being said, those guys, Shador Sanders, Travis Hunter, they cover up a lot. And then you made the point, LaJohntay Westert, Will Shepard, Jimmy Horn. Those aren't just like window dressing type of players as well. Those are guys that have a lot of ability that are going to have a Sunday career. So that being said, Colorado's going to have to get it in gear in terms of talent acquisition, and they've done a good job of that already. They're going to have to kick it up a notch. But, yeah, I would expect a slight fall off. I don't think they're going to fall off a cliff by any means, but a fall off that you would expect when you lose 2 potential top 10 picks.
Yeah, I think if you win 6 games, you're happy because you have an opportunity to go bowling. And now all you're doing is now building within the building. And like you said, have continuity. Have these young players understand that, yes, we lost really good players, but we've developed something here, a winning culture, in order for us to just get back to a bowl game and have everybody else just okay and be happy. 6 is good. 7 would be great.
Colorado fans are open for 7, 8, 9, maybe. Tyler, thank you so much for sending in that great question. If you have any questions, submit them below in the YouTube chat. And for more coverage on all of these quarterback battles happening across the country, head to these team sites. You got bucknuts.com. Dave Biddle and the crew have you covered on all things Ohio State, the Michigan Insider for the best Wolverine coverage, and Buff Stampede for Colorado. The transfer portal also opens in a little over 2 weeks, so now is the time to lock into your favorite team site.